Hey there, my name is EJ Whorton, and welcome to my current topic presentation. Today, I will be talking about how hearing loss is associated with less physical activity. So, when looking for articles, the one that interested me the most was titled Hearing Loss Tied to Less Physical Activity in Older Adults. Um, this was a Medical Express article that was published April 23rd, 2021. And the very first sentence of the article states that hearing loss is associated with a worse physical activity profile and contributes to accelerated aging, according to a study published April 19th in JAMA Network Open. Um, the, the study talks about, or the article talks about a study done by Dr. Pei Lun Kuo, and they examined data from a 2013 to 2004 from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And specifically, they looked at adults aged 60 to 69 years old. There were a total of 291 participants that met the criteria, and some of the findings consisted of hearing loss was significantly associated with less time spent in moderate to vigorous physical activity, less time spent in light intensity physical activity, more time spent in sedentary behavior, and a more fragmented physical activity pattern. So before I get into some additional research articles, I thought it'd be important to first talk about the vestibular system. So what is the vestibular system? The vestibular system is a sensory system that provides the leading contribution to the sense of balance and spatial orientation for the purpose of coordinating movement with balance. As I learned about in class, almost a third of people aged 65 and older fall annually. And believe it or not, the vestibular system plays a big role in that. Um, the vestibular system is one of the body's fall defense sensory systems. Um, Similarly to other parts of the body, it does get worse with age. What that means is that the cilia or the hair cells in the ear diminish as we get older, and with that, that tends to lead to a reduced sensory input and an increase in postural sway. Along with diminishing cilia in the ear, it also equates to hearing loss. So if the cilia is damaged in the ear or it's missing, uh, your body won't be able to send sound signals to the brain, therefore equating to hearing loss. So the first research article that I found was titled Analysis of Hearing Loss and Physical Activity Among US Adults Aged 60 to 69 Years Old. The purpose of this study was to examine the association of hearing loss with objectively measured physical activity. So the researchers in this study used data collected from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey that was completed in 2003 to 2004. And they specifically examined adults ages 60 to 69 years old. The article went on to define mild hearing loss as having a pure tone average of 25 to less than 40 decibels, and having and moderate or greater hearing loss is defined as having a pure tone average greater than or equal to 40 decibels. Uh, with that being said, uh, there were 291 participants in this study, and of those 291, only 70 participants suffered from hearing loss. 48 participants had mild hearing loss, and 22 had moderate or greater hearing loss. When comparing physical activity levels of those with hearing loss to those without, they found that those with hearing loss spent 5.5 minutes less in moderate to vigorous physical activity com- compared to those with normal hearing. They also found that 28.3, they also spent 28.3 minutes less in light intensity physical activity, and also 34 minutes more in sedentary behaviors compared to those with normal hearing. The study also concluded that hearing loss is associated with less physical activity, but there isn't enough research done to show that hearing loss uh, is equal to less physical activity. So there's a high association between the two, but there's not enough evidence to say that hearing loss does equal lower levels of physical activity. The next research article that I have here is titled Association Between Hearing Impairment and Lower Levels of Physical Activity in Older Adults. The purpose of this study was to determine whether hearing impairment is associated with physical activity levels. The study used data collected from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey that was completed in 2005 and 2006. And specifically, they looked at adults ages 70 years, 70 years old and older. They also went on to went on to define normal hearing as having a pure tone average of less than 25 decibels, mild hearing impairment of having 25 to less than 40 decibels, and moderate or greater hearing loss of having a pure tone average of greater than 40 decibels. So the way physical activity was assessed in the study were through questionnaires and using body-worn accelerometers. And as the study went on, they found that those with moderate or greater hearing loss had greater odds than those with normal hearing of being in a lower category of physical activity. And they also found that those with mild hearing impairment was not associated with physical activity levels. Um, this is interesting because the last study showed that any type of hearing impairment led to a decreased level in physical activity levels, but this study did not. So, time to talk about some solutions. The common theme that we've been seeing throughout is that hearing loss is associated with lower levels of physical activity. So, what can be done to help increase physical activity levels in those who suffer from hearing loss? Um, the first thing would be to take preventative measures. Living a healthy and active lifestyle, for one. If we live a healthy and active lifestyle, that not only makes you set up better to be more active as we get older, but it just increases your overall quality of life. Incorporating some type of physical activity into daily life, I feel like this is a big preventative measure to take because as we get older, our body starts to not function the same and some things can start to go wrong. But if we continue to be physically active every day, this can help slow down the onset of these diseases or these falls that may occur as we age. Um, Another preventative measure would be to avoid unnecessary loud noise. So, as mentioned previously, that the loss of cilia can lead to hearing loss. The loss of cilia in the ear can lead to hearing loss and therefore lead to um, a diminished vestibular system. So, if we can keep our ears healthy and avoid these unnecessarily loud noises, we can prolong our vestibular system and help decrease the risk of falls as we get older. Another possible solution would be wearing a hearing aid. I found an article that stated that wearing hearing aids have been shown to reduce an individual's risk of sustaining a fall related injury. I feel like this is crucial because if individuals are less likely to experience a fall, their confidence goes up. Therefore, they can participate in more physical activity and not have to worry about falling or any other risks that may decrease their physical activity levels. With that being said, this brings me to a personal experience. So, this is my grandpa and me when I was about, I don't know, two. But about 10 or so years ago, I started to notice that my grandpa was suffering from hearing loss. Whenever I would go over to his house to visit, he would just be sitting in the kitchen watching TV or just be on the couch. And I would say he was living a pretty sedentary lifestyle. But 5 or 6 years ago, he invested in a hearing aid. And with that, I started to notice that he did actually start to increase his physical activities levels. He would he told me that he would, walk on his treadmill at home and ride a stationary bicycle about 3 to 4 times a week. That alone is already a huge, improvement to what he was doing prior to having a hearing aid. So I would say that having investing in a hearing aid is definitely a viable solution and can definitely help those who suffer from hearing loss, increase their physical activity levels. And here are my references. Thank you for listening to my presentation.